What if I told you there is a place on Earth so unlucky it makes a horror movie franchise look like a romantic comedy? Imagine a city struck by a curse 7 different times. Not by witches, not by ancient magic, but by the brutal, unforgiving machinery of human history. Picture a city perfectly placed at the crossroads of the world. Let's call it the ultimate real estate dream. It sits on the coast, surrounded by lush mountains, resting exactly where the major continents meet. It is a literal gold mine. Merchants from every corner of the globe pass through here. Silk, spices, gold, and groundbreaking ideas all flow through its crowded streets. It is wealthy, it is beautiful, it is absolutely doomed. Because here is the dark, ironic twist of this story. The very thing that made this city so incredibly valuable, its perfect, strategic location, was the exact same thing that kept dragging it into hell. You see, when you sit at the center of the world, you don't just attract trade, you attract trouble. Every empire, every warlord, every force of nature looks at that map and says, I want that, and they take it over and over and over again. But the people of this city? They are stubborn. They are completely insane. Because every time the universe reaches down and smashes their home to dust, they just dust themselves off and build it right back up. Welcome to the city that was cursed 7 times. The first curse came from below. It was a quiet morning. The smell of fresh bread was drifting through the market stalls. Merchants were haggling over the price of dye. Kids were running through the stone alleys, laughing. And then, without warning, the earth groaned. It sounded like a giant waking up beneath the ocean. The solid ground turned to liquid. Massive stone buildings swayed like trees in a hurricane before crashing down into the streets. The great temples, the sprawling markets, the homes, all of it reduced to rubble in seconds. Tens of thousands of people were gone, just like that. Silence replaced the noise of the market. An earthquake had wiped the city off the map. Any normal civilization would look at the crater that used to be their home, pack their bags, and walk away. But not these people. They looked at the rubble, sighed, and said, "We can fix this." And they did. They rebuilt, they cleared the stones, they put up new walls. They went right back to buying and selling, as if the earth itself hadn't just tried to swallow them whole. But the earth wasn't done, neither was the universe. Because a few decades later, the second curse arrived. And this time, it was invisible. Remember those massive trade routes that made the city so rich? The ones bringing in silk and spices from the east? Well, in the ancient world, global shipping didn't just deliver luxury goods. It delivered rats, and those rats carried fleas. And those fleas carried a little thing we call the plague. It started with a fever. A few people complained of aches in the port district. The next day, those people had dark, swollen lumps under their arms. By the end of the week, bodies were piling up in the streets faster than the gravediggers could dig. The city's population was packed in tight, living practically on top of each other. It was the perfect buffet for a microscopic killer. The plague ripped through the alleys like a wildfire. The wealthy fled to the hills, but the ordinary people, they were trapped. The city smelled of death and burning incense. Half the population died. You would think this would be the end. A crushed city, a dead population, an economy in ruins. But no, the survivors burned the bodies, bleached the streets, and literally rebuilt the markets. They had to eat, right? Life, apparently, finds a way to keep haggling over the price of wheat. But here is the thing about surviving a natural disaster and a pandemic. It makes you weak. And in the ancient world, if you are weak, you are prey. Which brings us to the third curse, the invasion. A rising empire to the east had been watching this city for years. They didn't care about the earthquakes. They didn't care about the plague. They only cared about the location. If you control this city, you control the trade routes. If you control the trade routes, you control the world. The siege was brutal. The invaders camped outside the massive walls for months, starving people out. Catapults slammed massive boulders against the stone defenses day and night. The sound of iron and rock echoed through the terrified streets. The city held out as long as it could. But eventually, the gates gave way. The invaders poured in. The city was sacked, looted, burned. The men were slaughtered. The survivors were dragged off in chains. The city was dead. Right? Wrong. The invaders actually realized they needed the city. They needed the trade. So they fixed the walls, repopulated the streets with their own people, and turned it back into the bustling hub it used to be. The curse hadn't destroyed it. It had just changed the landlords. Think about that for a second. The city just got hit by a disaster that literally reshaped the landscape, a plague that killed half the people, and an army that enslaved the rest. And yet, the markets opened back up, the merchants came back, the population grew, the city was rich again. You would think that after all that trauma, the universe would cut them some slack. You would think the gods of history would look down and say, okay, they've suffered enough. Let's give them a few centuries of peace. But the universe doesn't work like that. The universe has a dark sense of humor. And the fourth curse was already smoldering in the shadows. The city had survived the ground shaking, the plague rotting it from the inside, and a foreign army smashing down its gates. You would think the people would get a break. A few centuries of peace maybe? A long vacation from the apocalypse? No, the fourth curse was already sparking. When the city was rebuilt after the brutal invasion, there was a massive, desperate push for rapid growth. The new rulers wanted it bigger, grander, and richer than before, so they built fast. And when you build fast in the ancient world, you use one material above all others, wood. The entire city became a sprawling maze of tightly packed timber houses, wooden balconies, and thatched roofs. It was a tinderbox just waiting for a match, and the match struck in the dead of summer. Ironically, it started in a baker's oven. A small fire leaped to the wooden wall next door. Within minutes, the wind caught the embers and threw them across the street. Because the buildings were practically leaning on each other, the fire didn't just spread, it teleported. Entire blocks went up in flames in a matter of seconds. The sky turned pitch black with thick ash. The heat was so intense that metal coins melted together in the pockets of fleeing merchants. People ran for the harbor, throwing themselves into the freezing water to escape the inferno. But the fire didn't just burn the homes. It burned the massive granaries holding the city's entire food supply. Which brings us inevitably to the fifth curse, famine. Imagine surviving a citywide inferno, only to realize that the fire just ate your dinner, and your breakfast, and your dinner for the next 3 years. To make matters worse, the trade routes that usually brought grain to the city were suddenly disrupted by a massive war happening hundreds of miles away. No ships could get through. The prices of bread skyrocketed. Then the bread simply vanished. People started eating their workhorses, then their pets, then the rats that had survived the fire. Then, well, history doesn't like to talk about the darkest parts of starvation. But you can use your imagination. The city became a ghost of its former self. The streets, once bustling with merchants shouting in a dozen different languages, were now filled with silence and hollow-eyed survivors. The population shrank drastically. People fled to the countryside, hoping to find a single turnip to eat. The city was empty, broken and starving. Surely this was the end. You can't have a city if there's no one left alive to live in it. But human beings are terrifyingly stubborn. The war ended. The trade routes opened back up. The ships returned, their wooden hulls heavy with grain, and slowly, incredibly, the people crept back. They rebuilt the market stalls, they replanted the fields. They breathed life back into the ashes. But the curse wasn't finished, not by a long shot. Because the sixth curse didn't come from nature, it didn't come from foreign armies, it came from within. Civil war. You see, the city was so diverse, so packed with different cultures, ethnicities, and religions, that it was always a powder keg of ideologies. For a long time, they all got along because they were making money. But when the economy dipped and political tensions rose across the region, the neighbors suddenly stopped looking like neighbors. They started looking like enemies. The city turned on itself. Street battles broke out in the exact same markets where people used to trade silk. Brother fought brother. The grand neighborhoods were divided by makeshift barricades. One side of the street would control the roofs, shooting arrows and throwing stones down at the other side, controlling the alley. It was brutal, bloody, and deeply personal. An invading army just wants your gold and your land. Your neighbor wants you dead because you pray to a slightly different version of God, or pledge loyalty to a different politician. The civil war tore the city apart from the inside out. The infrastructure collapsed. The great aqueducts were sabotaged to cut off water to rival factions. The beautiful temples were burned to the ground. It was a self-inflicted apocalypse. By the time the fighting finally stopped, the city was a hollow shell. The wealth was gone, the unity was shattered. The population was a tiny fraction of what it once was. Think about the psychology of a place like this. To survive an earthquake, you need strong foundations. To survive a plague, you need medicine and quarantine. To survive an invasion, you need strong walls. But to survive a civil war, you need to look your friend in the eye and decide if you want to kill them. The city didn't just lose its buildings during this curse, it lost its soul. People stopped trusting each other. The grand idea of a unified city shattered into 1,000 little paranoid factions. You couldn't walk down your own street without wondering if the guy selling fruit was going to wait until your back was turned and stab you in it. Trade completely stopped. Nobody wanted to travel to a city where the locals were too busy slaughtering each other to buy spices. And so, the city withered. The once great metropolis, the jewel of the world, was reduced to a series of armed camps surrounded by weeds and rubble. The population that had survived the earth, the plague, the swords, the fire, and the starvation simply couldn't survive each other. They packed up what little they had left and abandoned the grand stone ruins to the wind and the stray dogs. For the first time in its long, cursed history, the city was truly, utterly silent. The curse had finally broken the unbreakable. But you really should know better by now. The people of this city didn't know the meaning of the word quit. It took them a generation, maybe two. But eventually, the survivors crept back. They cleaned the blood off the cobblestones, patched up the broken aqueducts, and went right back to business. But the universe had one more trick up its sleeve, the seventh and final curse. And this one was the cruelest of them all, because it wasn't a violent, dramatic death. It was a slow, suffocating fade. Economic collapse. Here is the ultimate sick irony of this city. Its entire existence, its massive wealth, and its incredible resilience all depended on one single factor, being the center of the world. But the world moves. The tectonic plates of global power shift. New empires rose in distant lands. New, faster sea routes were discovered by explorers looking for shortcuts. And suddenly, the massive trade caravans didn't need to pass through this city anymore. The ships stopped coming. The merchants packed up their silk and their spices and moved to the new, booming ports. The money dried up. Imagine waking up every day in a city that used to rule the world and watching the ships sail right past your harbor. The storefronts close. The grand plazas where politicians used to give speeches become grazing spots for stray goats. The skilled artisans who crafted the finest goods in the known world had to put down their tools and pick up farming tools just to feed their families. It's a different kind of hell, a psychological death. The people weren't dying from swords or sickness, they were dying from obscurity. The city had survived everything the universe could throw at it, only to be killed by indifference. Without the trade, the city had no purpose. The grand, bustling markets became overgrown fields. The beautiful mansions of the wealthy merchants crumbled into dust. The massive stone walls, which had repelled countless armies and survived countless earthquakes, slowly fell apart because there was no money to repair them. The city didn't burn this time. It didn't shake, it didn't bleed, it just went quiet. It became a forgotten backwater, a ruin, a sad footnote in a history book, and that, you would think, is how the story ends. A city cursed 7 times, finally dying a quiet, pathetic death of irrelevance. The curse had finally won. But look at a map today. Look at the modern world. Because this city, this stubborn, cursed, absolute insane city, is still there. It's not a ruin. It's not an archaeological dig site covered in dust. It is a living, breathing, sprawling modern metropolis. Millions of people call it home today. The descendants of the survivors are still walking those exact same streets. They are still trading in the markets. They are still drinking coffee in the cafes, laughing, arguing, and living their lives right on top of the layered bones of their ancestors. The curse didn't kill the city. The curse just made it immortal. Because every single time the world knocked it down, the city learned. It rebuilt its walls stronger. It rebuilt its markets faster. The earthquakes taught them better architecture. The plagues taught them sanitation. The invasions taught them diplomacy. The fires taught them to build with stone. The famines taught them to store grain. The civil wars taught them tolerance. And the economic collapse, it taught them to adapt, to find new industries, and to survive without the crutch of global trade. The very things that were supposed to destroy them became the exact things that forged them into an unbreakable force. The city didn't survive in spite of the curse. It survived because of it. Human history is full of fragile empires that collapsed over a single bad war. We have seen entire mighty civilizations vanish from the face of the earth because of one bad drought. But this city took 7 apocalypses directly to the face, wiped the blood off its chin, and just asked for another. It stands today covered in modern concrete and glass as a monument to the most terrifying, awe-inspiring trait of the human spirit, our absolute irrational refusal to give up. We are stubborn. We are crazy. And when the universe tells us that a place is cursed, we build a house on it anyway. If this wild, dark story blew your mind, I need you to do me a massive favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. It takes 2 seconds. It costs you absolutely nothing. And it tells the algorithm to send more crazy, dark, and epic historical stories exactly your way. Drop a comment below and tell me honestly, which of the 7 curses do you think you would have survived? And if you know someone who constantly complains about their hometown being too dramatic, send this video to them for a little perspective. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.